Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have a female left behind and forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of April 23rd, 2023, a date of marriage of 2008. She does not know contact types yet, and he is a high energy replayer. She says, what strategies should I take for standing psychologically through divorce? In my country, there's such a thing as a divorce on mutual agreement. And this means that I will agree to the divorce, mediation for custody, alimony, and property. And the divorce can be done in about 2 months. If I don't agree, then he goes to court and divorces the hard way. I doubt that he has money for the attorney or alimony at the moment at all. He has not contacted me for over 6 weeks, and he's angry. I contacted my attorney and told her my situation. She said that she had clients with such a psychosis, and that if he's determined to divorce, he will either way. She said I have to be in peace with myself and to decide either to let him go and hope to return, or to drag it out in time for him to come back to his senses. But she was surprised that I would like to stand for this marriage with such a person. So a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to address is the standing for a marriage with such a person. You're not. Nobody is standing for a marriage with the MLCer. Nobody is standing for a marriage with the monster. You're standing for the person you were married to, the person they were before bomb drop, the person you chose to marry, not the person who is in the identity crisis. Okay. And she said she's seen people with this. They do come through it. They don't always come through it with you or choosing you, or you have chosen to move on. And some get stuck in it. Sometimes they get stuck in it just for a time. But they don't always come through new and improved or better. They can. And sometimes I wonder if they have a better, I don't know if it's right to say better chance, but when there are people who are there for them with grace, is it easier or more likely to come through better because you have someone and something to come through better for? I don't have an answer. It's just one of those things that I wonder. So, what strategy do we take for standing? Divorce on mutual agreement might be similar to, we're forced to divorce here in the United States often. It's no fault. Every state has now fallen to no fault about, I think, 10 years ago, finally. And there's irreconcilable differences. And often that's just, we can't reconcile all differences, so we're divorcing. It doesn't have to mean that you really agree. You're forced to sign. Or you would default everything. Or, so I would wonder if you can, and you don't have to do this because this would just be a psychological thing for you, peace of mind. Can you sign something with the stipulation, I am signing this because to get what I need to out of it to protect myself, but I don't agree. It is not something I agree with as the best that needs to happen. I agree that it is happening, and so I have to sign it. In my situation, my lawyer said, I'll sign it for you. I can sign it in, so just so that I'm not signing, yes, I agree to this. It's the signature means I have to do it. It's not that I want it, and I wanted that stipulated. But there's no legal power within that. It was just peace of mind. What strategy do you take, though? He may not have the money. But she's right, and yes, she's not. He will divorce either way if he's determined. Here's the thing with MLCers. Not all of them are determined. They're determined often to be apart from you. But they are too lazy to do the work that separates you legally sometimes. Oftentimes. So they will say they want a divorce, and they'll do absolutely nothing. And they'll tell you, well, I considered myself divorced anyway. And they do. So it doesn't have as much meaning to them. The paperwork, the legal things. And you have to figure out what you're going to do with that. That could help you drag it out or not. Some of them will go after the divorce and do all the paperwork and do the necessary due diligence. Many of them won't. So when she says, if he's determined, he's going to do it either way, what does determined mean? But I've seen some that are determined and active, and many that are determined in the sense they're not ever coming back, or we don't see them come back. And sometimes that's because the spouse, the left behind, changes his or her mind, or it doesn't stand at all. But they just, I'm just waiting for you to do it. I don't want to do it. They're just too lazy sometimes. Sometimes they just don't want to be the bad guy. I want you to make a choice instead of me making the choice. I left. So it doesn't mean he'll do anything. It doesn't mean he won't do it. Okay? You have to watch him and see what he does. But maybe you want to take some action on your own. And I do want you to take enough action to protect yourself. At least. You can go all the way. You can stand during, through, and after divorce. It may change the psychological barrier for reconciliation. I don't know. I'm sure it does for some. Some people have, because whether it's a psychological barrier for you and him is unique to each of you. Not whether it's unique to other people. But in general, is it a bigger psychological barrier? I don't know. So what strategy do you take for standing through divorce? It's the same for everybody. You heal. You heal. You detach. That is part of how you heal. Detachment is the healing. You work on yourself. You focus on yourself. You make yourself a priority, and you are important. But you do it with an attitude, a universal attitude of grace. You do it without demonizing the other person. That doesn't mean that you have rose-colored glasses. You could recognize that person's a jerk, that person's a monster, that person's abusive, whatever the monster in their MLC is. You also will come to a point to look back on the previous pieces of your marriage before midlife crisis, and was it good? Many will say, yeah, it really was. This is different. And some will say, you know what, it wasn't. And we can either repair it and make it better, and that's a possibility, or it's actually going to be better severing this anyway, and someday they come to that. Because it wasn't even good before that. It wasn't healthy. Some of us feel like I want to save it, but I feel I have to, or we're codependent. And once we're healed, we really are better off on the other side. So you will come, hopefully, to have an authentic vision of the marriage you had before MLC, so that you can use that as well to make a determination. In the beginning, why do you stand? In the beginning, and you're still there, you're only a few months in, you stand for healing. You stand while you are healing, because when you are in this state of panic and anxiety, unhealed, attached, codependent, you're not in a good, stable place emotionally for making life-changing decisions. Even though in many life-changing decisions, pieces of them have already been made for you, but is that a decision you would choose to maintain? If they came home with, would you choose to, no, you know what, let's keep it that way. It's not a good time. It's not a good time to make a life-changing decision on getting them back in if they're not home also, because they're not ready and you're not ready. Even if you think you might want them home. Being wanting and ready are two different things. So the first thing, I don't want you standing because I want to save this marriage. Set it aside. You're not saying I don't want to. It's just, I need to heal. I need to heal so that I am in the frame of mind to look at it with honest, logical vision for what it was, what it is now, and what it can be, and not what it will be, because we don't know what it will be, because they may or may not come home in the future. When you are stable enough, then you make the next decision. Okay, I am going to continue standing for my marriage because I think that is what is best. Or you can say, I'm not sure. I am going to continue, however, to be grace, because maybe they come home, maybe they don't. I'm going to be fine either way. Or maybe you go another fish in the sea route. I'm not standing. But if they were to turn around or move forward and catch up to me and consider reconciling, they are another fish in the dating pool sea. And yeah, if I'm available and they're available, I might consider it. It's not, or you can say, hey, you are in a different pond and that pond's gross. I don't ever want to touch that pond again. They might be the one person in the world you never want to be with. Sometimes it's because of the burned bridges. Sometimes it's because of what you recognize wasn't good before that. It's all your choice. But right now, instead of standing for your marriage and saying, oh, I am marriage and I made it proud, I want you to stand so that you can make a decision. Okay? The strategy is healing. And the beauty of this, you have to do the same thing if you weren't even standing now. So you never found this website, but you're like, okay, this horrible thing has happened to me. I have to get better. The same thing. If you choose not to stand for your marriage, maybe you know that he was abusive and horrible now, and you can say, I'm going to stand for healing now, but I'm not ever taking it back. And you know that now because it would be dangerous. It's the same though. You heal. You do everything that is for you and you make yourself a priority. You make yourself an attractive force. You work on yourself. You return to old hobbies or find new hobbies. I hadn't been going to church for a while. It was because there had been some issues at church, not because of what was, I just couldn't make it. And I'd felt almost betrayed at church, but I went back. And so I returned to a community of love and support. I returned to the spirituality within that community. I started new hobbies or delve deep into things. So I started some crafting projects and some art projects. I did some new decorating in my house and I repainted the interior. I threw myself into some of these things. So I changed the environment around me, and through that, and within that, I changed as well. You focus on yourself. You do it with a mindfulness so that you can learn to be calm. We're working on being emotionally stable. And you may have been emotionally stable before. Maybe you're emotionally stable now, but this does throw us off. So we want to either return to or learn to become emotionally stable. It's all of that strategy. It's all about you being a person that is healthy for being in a relationship with others. Whether that is familial relationship with your siblings and your cousins and your parents and aunts and uncles, or your friends, or physically intimate romantic relationships. People want to be around you. Then what happens with your MLCer? It depends on the MLCer first. They may look at you and say, what is she doing right? What's she got going on? Because our life is falling apart and I'm awful. Maybe they say, I don't deserve her. And they're not wrong at this point in their crisis. Remember, this is a crisis for them. But they may also figure out that is somebody to watch. That's somebody I need to emulate. I want to be an example like them. What can I learn from that person to get myself healed? What are you doing right? Can you show me? Or maybe I want to be around that person, in that person's orbit, because they're enjoyable, they're stable, they're safe, they're comfortable, whatever. You become an attractive force. Now, your MLCer chooses still whether they are going to resist that force or go through into it and be pulled in. It's their choice. Doesn't mean you're doing something right or wrong. Now, there are some other things that are whether you should or shouldn't do. In my situation, I had a clinging boomerang who needed and wanted a lot of reassurance from me that I was still there. Not all of them do that. I showed him a very stable face and tried to present myself as that so that he was attracted back to me. And I became what I call a credible source to him. When I spoke, he believed me. It didn't always work in my favor. Oh, we don't need counseling. You can handle that. No, that's not how it works. But that's what I meant when I said I became a credible source. So credible that I spoke with a clinical authority, and I'm not trained. But I'd done enough research, and that's kind of how I speak anyway, that he believed me when I said things such as, your relationship with that other person is doomed. It's not going to work out, and here's how it's going to happen. Here's how it will play out. And then it did that. Now, did it play out doomed because I planted the seed to him, or because it did, or both? Probably both. I planted an expectation that it was going to falter, and it was already doing that anyway. Maybe I helped it. Maybe I didn't do anything by planting that. But I also told him I was standing. Most people don't do that, and that is the correct choice in most situations. It gave mine so much reassurance. First, it freed him up for cake eating. But in some situations, they'll just tease you and tell you you're absurd and you're in denial and you're weak because of it. And they will use that against you. Or they'll say how it burdens them. And so sometimes, and perhaps more often, it is better to keep your standing a relative secret. And I say relative in the sense that you can tell them in the beginning, and you don't have to say, I'm standing. You can, what you do is you say, I don't agree with this. I don't agree. I understand that you want a divorce. I do not feel it is the best course of action. But each of us gets a say. And the one who is divorcing can have that say taken all the way. But I still can say, I don't agree. And so I just want you to know, I'm sad. And I may not be able to stop this. Because I'm not going to force you home. But even after a divorce is finalized, I won't agree with it. And I don't want it to be sustained. So if you ever change your mind, and I'm not saying you will, because they come up with, what are you, you're crazy. I know. But if you ever do, I'm here for you. Okay? I'm here, and maybe I'll change my mind. But I am still here for you. I was with you because I loved you. I made that choice. And the choice that I'm making going forward is to continue to love you. That's the vow I made. And I will maintain the vow in whatever context given to me. So right now I'm going to just this is agape. This is not eros. I'm loving you from a distance because that's what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to become hateful to you. I will, however, do what I need to do to protect myself, to protect our children, to protect my finances and our finances if it's that. That means that I'm not going to allow you to mistreat me. But I'm not going to allow your mistreatment to stop me from feeling love. That's an acceptance of what's going on while continuing to feel love for a person. And the love that you are feeling is agape. I don't typically advise that you talk about standing over and over. Sometimes it's you just introduce the concept in the beginning. And then they may get it, not like it, whatever. It's their choice. They may someday forget that you're standing or assume, oh, she stopped doing that. Sometimes, depending on the type of person, they can get little reminders. A year or two later, oh, I didn't know you still thought that. Sometimes if they are clinging boomerangs and they've returned, they know it. That was mine. But the main basic strategy is that you heal, because two people do not complete one another. For a stable marriage, for a stable reconciliation, you need two people who are whole on their own as individuals, and they come together and complement each other. Now, as an MLCer, they're not going to come home complete typically, unless they are such a vanisher that it's years and years, and then you meet up again. Maybe you meet at one of your kids' weddings and rekindle. But if you have somebody who's a boomerang or a clinging boomerang, they're around. They may return broken and broken and broken. And that doesn't mean reconcile, but they keep coming into your orbit or staying in your orbit. And you may decide, okay, we're going to work on this, but the healing is still going on. The making amends still happens, even with the decision. So when I say two whole individuals, you're going to become that. But I want you to be it. I don't want you to think of them as, I need that person for my breath. You get yourself complete so that they feel, I need a stable force in my life because I'm not there yet. Okay, this is a long process, and it's long for you and your MLCer. The healing process is a very rewarding thing for you once you embrace it. Okay, I hope this is helpful, and I will see everybody in the next question.